Hello everybody, Michael here, hanging out at Flagler Beach in Florida. They're rebuilding the pier here. It was taken down within several, maybe like 20 years worth of storms and things like that. A little piece of it was broken off every time, and so now they finally decided to rebuild it, and the community is very happy about it. You know, I talk about this New Earth leadership and how it's coming, and it's actually already here. The people are already here, and it's actually been here for a long time, you know. 20 years, 20 plus years, depending on how you look at it. But as it gets into leadership, I mentioned because I'm a foodie and I really love food, and I love cooking with fresh, organic, beautiful vegetables and grains, and just overall, fresh food is better. So I brought that up, you know. I said that we would take from something that we didn't like, let's say war, and the trillions of dollars that we spend on, I believe I said, bombing other countries, you know. And we would divert that. We would stop bombing other countries, and we'd divert it to making sure everybody had fresh food to prepare for their families and for themselves. And what else would New Earth leadership change? Well, it would change everything, really. It's a full transformation, or if you really want to go totally changed, it's a transmutation. So another thing that would happen is, let's talk about New Earth leadership and education, let's say. And a good place to start this talk is to challenge you, I guess, to look at the history of our education. And they don't teach it in school. They don't teach the history of education in education. You have to kind of step out of it, and now you can just ask your phone, you know, what's the history of education, or who developed our current educational system. And you'll find out that our current educational system is like it's like a factory. And it's like a factory because it's turning our children into factory workers. So they can work in factories. And if you look at the history, you'll find out that it was largely driven by the car industry, and the car industry was taking off so quickly and developing so fast, and the technology was booming, but there weren't enough workers to make it happen. So, I'm not making this up. I guess I could make it up. It's weird when people say you can't make this stuff up, but I'm not making this up. You can look it up, and you'll see that the leaders of the car industry were basically put in charge of creating an educational system, because they needed workers to be taught how to clock in every day and get to work and then clock out, and then they could go home and do whatever they need to do, and then they need to come back at a certain time, you know, and put their 8 hours in. It's a really interesting story, that history, and where it really comes from, and how another country failed in war, and they saw that their soldiers needed more structure, needed to be more disciplined, and so the leaders of the car industry went and learned from this country about how to put structure, because that country put structure in the schooling, so that the children would grow up with this type of structure, and then when they became soldiers, that when the general said stop or go or form this type of formation, for strategies of war, that they would do it without question, because they were taught at an early age about this structure and about this discipline. Well, the leaders of industry, mainly the car industry, they went and learned from this country and then brought that educational system back to America to create a whole brand new educational system that made children learn structure, how to get up and how to be in line and how to, sit in a class in a certain way for a certain amount of time and have discipline, and and it worked. And now we go to school to learn how to be on time and for our attendance to be high, and yeah, sure, we learn how to read and we learn how to do math, and we learn a certain type of history, the history that they want us to learn, and they make us read the books that we want. Never before, well, I can't say never before, but it's real interesting how there's lots of books currently that can't be taught in school. So you're shown, it's very obvious that the education is very pigeonholed, or it's very, let's say, in the shape of a square. So if you show up as a child and you're a triangle or you're a circle, then it causes friction, and we see that. Not everybody, they say, not everybody's meant to of education. It's kind of weird. We see all the weird dysfunctional examples of our current educational system, and so how would New Earth leadership change that? Well, it would pretty much stick with the script of finding out what your authentic self is, and education would be structured in such a way that the children would find out early what their authentic self is. They wouldn't have to go through 33 years or even longer. They say it is said in some circles that it takes 33 years, to really figure out who you are. But if education was set up so that when you got into, let's say, kindergarten, that it was set up so you were taught right off the bat that you're a special person, that you're unique, and that your piece of the puzzle was very important, and that was the most important thing to do first, right? Is to find that unique piece of the puzzle. So maybe that would be the biggest lesson in kindergarten, is like, figure out who you are, and let's play games to see where you're good at, and let's do art to see if you're good at that, and let's get into the body with exercise. And not everybody wants to climb a rope and show how strong you are, or not everybody wants to go into home ec and cook things. That's just, sometimes that's a total square peg round hole situation. So and then as you went into high school, it would get more advanced, and it would have more advanced things to figure out who you are and to figure out what you want to do, and so the whole educational system would be it would be an early boost to figure out what your piece of the puzzle is that you're going to contribute, you know, instead of going through job and job as you're like a 20-year-old, or maybe you're choosing to go to school to become a doctor, and you find out you're not meant to be a doctor, but you chose because that's a really good, you know, there are some people that are really meant to be healers, they're doctors. So education would change in such a way that you would find this out early, you see. And what a wonderful America that would create, right? When high schoolers were on the trail of finding out their authentic self, and it didn't have to come through trial and tribulations and finally having to give up because things are just so crazy that you just don't want to do it anymore. The educational system would create these people that already know who they are and what they want to be. Heaven, everybody. So this transmutation that we're all going through, and sometimes it takes till we're like 50 to really step into it, you know. Education could be set up so a 6-year-old steps into their authentic self. And if it takes longer, because it'll take longer for some people, then in high school we'd be blossoming into our true authentic self, maybe through art or bodily expression, through dance, or through becoming leadership amongst our peers, you know. This would all be happening a lot earlier in our life. All right, go out there and create a great day, because great days aren't they are created by you, by your authentic self. New Earth Leadership. Love you guys.